Reggie and I are the Watchmen here. I'm 85 years old, so I've been around for a long time, Mac. When I was 15 years old, in 1955, I quit school and went logging, And logging was pretty highball. There were a lot of big machines and lots of men. Sanspit had a big camp. Arrow had a big camp. Moresby, Giscatla. Some of them. I think Giscatla had about 400 men working for them. And the Haidas used to beg forestry to cut down on the total allowable cut, but they wouldn't listen. They just increase it. So the Haidas finally said, "Hooslo, good enough. We're going to shut her down." They decided to blockade the road, So they had a bunch of meetings, and Chief Skidegate, Dempsey Collinson, he had a couple of seine boats, and he transported material and men down to Sedgwick Bay, which is around the corner. And they built a couple of cabins for people to stay in while they were having protests. Some of the people used to stay in hot springs. Some of them stayed on the boat. And then when they finally got everything built there, they started to transport people down to go on the line. They'd stand like this on the line. They wouldn't let the loggers pass. And they had some old people, 2 from Masset and 2 from Skidegate. We had Adolphus Pussy Marks from Masset and Ethel Matthews, was that her name? Yeah. And we had 2 from Skidegate. We had Haida Yovanovich and Watson Price. Watson Price was their chief of Joth at the time. He was quite old and he talked real slow, He was asking his daughter, "They got any coffee in them there jails?" "Boy, yeah, they got coffee." Yeah, that's just the way you talked real slow, And anyway, the people didn't know if they were going to end up going to jail. They told them that you might have to go to jail for anywhere from 8 months to 2 years. And so all the people that were on the line, they didn't know if they were going to go to jail or not. Didn't care anyway. I had no time to go on the line. I was working too much. But my sister, my son, my nephews, they were all on the line. And my nephew, Kilsykaji Sting, was his Haida name. His real name is Miles Richardson Jr. And his Haida name is Kilsykaji Sting. It means he's so damn smart he got 2 heads. Anyway, it's a good thing they had him on their side because he was good at negotiating. And he worked for government for a few years. He was the head of the treaty process, so he knew a lot of people in Ottawa, and plus he knew a lot of the politicians too. So it helped quite a bit when they had to negotiate. And when some people got arrested, he went and represented them in court too. Went into court and the judge said, "Hey, where's your lawyer? You need a lawyer." And Kilsykaji said, "I'm representing our people. I speak right from the heart because we're protecting our land." So he let him do it, And he did good. Anyway, nobody thought the Haidas would ever win, but they had lots of help, There was over 1 million people helping them all over the place. Teachers, fishermen, Dave Suzuki, even some people that were on government. Jim Fulton and Sven Robinson, they were both on government, and they were both back in the Haidas. Yeah. Anyway, some people even sent a train from the East Coast all the way to Vancouver, raised money all the way across Canada, gave it to the Haidas when they got there. So the Haidas had lots of help. Nobody thought they'd ever win because nobody's ever won against the government, any Indigenous people. That was the first time. But, like I say, they had lots of help, and the old people made up rules and regulations when they had the blockade. 3 main rules the first one was no drugs or alcohol. Number 2, no violence. Number 3, treat everybody with respect. And that's what they did. There were a lot of hot-headed young Haidas there liked to fight too, but you could see they were just holding themselves back, Anyway, after they won the confrontation, Kilsykaji came in handy again for negotiating when they decided to make this a park. The Haidas knew that if they they turned this right into a park. When they settled land claims, they wouldn't be able to get her back out, and they would have lost half their land base. So Kilsai, him and a few other people, Gujau and different ones, and negotiated with the government, and they finally agreed to disagree. By that I mean they forgot about who owns this place, and just make this a park reserve. And 1993 they signed the Gwaii Haanas Agreement, and they decided to hire half Haidas at the park, and they put the head office on reserves. Kilsai was good in negotiating, and the government, they decided to give Haida Gwaii a bunch of money too. And once they settled the Gwaii Haanas Agreement, they gave them two funds, one for $38 million and one for $24 million. And that was to replace the money that was going to be lost from logging. And they wanted to spend it right now and get it out of their hair, eh? But Kilsai and them, they wanted that money to last forever. They wanted to start up a fund and give money away to different things called the Gwaii Trust. And they argued back and forth, and the government finally agreed to it. And since then, the Gwaii Trust started out with $38 million. Now it's worth over $100 million. And they've spent the $100 million on different things around all the outlying areas. It wasn't only for the Haidas, it was for everybody on Haida Gwaii. Sanspit, Masset, Port Laments, Tawal. And the fund grew quite a bit. And the $24 million fund, I guess it was worded kind of haywire, so they couldn't get access to it. I think finally about 2 years ago, they straightened out the wording, and they have access to that too. And that fund ended up being $60 million from 24. Maybe the government could learn how to run things, eh? Anyway, Park Canada decided to put this totem pole up. And it's called the Gwaii Haanas Legacy Pole. They put it out for tender. See who's going to get the job to carve it. They had to pay for the pole. And Cujo's two sons, Gwaii and Joel Needenshaw, they won the right to carve this pole. They've carved quite a few poles around Skidegate and Masset. Quite enterprising young fellas.
We were up there.
And Gujo is a master carver, so he taught them how to carve, eh? And Gujo is also a chief of Skidance. His name is Gidansta. And he tried to stop the logging maybe 20, 30 years before the Haidas did, but they weren't too successful. Him and a bunch of hippie guys there, they put together, they got some trappers and they went to court, but they didn't make out too good. But Cujo, he was always on hand when they're blockading and everything. He was always mixed up in everything. Quite interested in our culture. He's a good singer, and he made a tape. Quite a good singer. He's one of my favorite Haida singers. And he's quite colorful. He carved an eagle up on top of this pole. And the Haidas and Parks Canada, they vow to protect Haida Gwaii right from the bottom of the ocean to the top of the mountains. And that's what that figure on the bottom represents, the bottom of the ocean. It's a Sculpin, bullhead. And the eagle up on top represents the top of the mountains, carved by Gujo. Right above the Sculpin is the grizzly bear. The Haidas always knew there were grizzly bears on the island, but people didn't believe them. You can see how it's got long claws and standing, I guess, its claws. Quite a few of the poles, some of the mortuary poles down in Skungwaii have grizzly bears on them, eh? And Skidance has 3 different names. It's called Skidance, it's called Kuna, and the Haidas have a name for it. Haida Lanas, they call it. Grizzly Bear Town, it means. Haida Lanas is a Haida name, and it means Grizzly Bear Town. So they even named one of their villages after grizzly bears. Right above the grizzly bear are the 5 good people, the people that were standing on the line. You can see how they got their arms linked together, eh? And 4 of those figures have gumboots on. That's the people that are here today. And the one in the middle has no gumboots. That's our ancestors. We always think that our ancestors are with us, helping us. Right above that is the ravens. If you're a Haida, you're either a raven or an eagle. I'm an eagle. Reggie's a raven. I guess one of the reasons for that is if ravens aren't allowed to marry ravens, you might end up marrying her cousin, Although some people still do it, Anyway, when a chief raves a pole or builds a longhouse, he has to hire people from the opposite moiety. So if this is a raven pole, he would have had to hire eagle to do the work. I don't really know why that is, but that's one of the rules. And the Haidas never used to have any written language before, and totem pole was a way of telling the story of the chief. And when the missionaries came here, they thought the Haidas were idolizing totem poles, thought they were worshiping idols, so they made them cut them down, not allowed to carve any more poles, not allowed to potlatch, sent our kids to residential school, take little kids like this away, send them to school. Right above the raven is Sacred One, standing and moving. He was a supernatural being, that little guy there, right on. And the reason he's on the pole is because there was a big earthquake on Haida Gwaii in 2012, the year before this pole was carved. And it is 7.8 on the Richter scale. That's why Sacred One is on there. Because the Haidas believed that Haida Gwaii was held up by a post like this. Haida Gwaii was up on top. And there was only 2 places, Haida Gwaii and the mainland. But at that time, you guys used to believe that the earth was flat, and if you went too far, you'd fall off the end. Everybody had their own beliefs, And that's what the Haidas believed. Haida Gwaii held up by a post, and that's the reason why Sacred One was on there, because he was one that caused earthquakes. He's holding the post, and if he moved around like this, Haida Gwaii would shake up and cause an earthquake, And right above Sacred One is the post that held Haida Gwaii up. And the reason those abalone shells are on there was the chief of Windy Bay. He had one of the biggest longhouses, and he had a big frontal pole in front of the longhouse, and he had it covered right from the bottom right to the top with abalone shells. See it way out just about over to the mainland when it's sunny out, And above that is the Wasgo. The Wasgo was half wolf and half killer whale. Bill Reed always depict him as killing 3 killer whales at one time. He was mean, Have a killer whale in each claw like this, and he'd have a killer whale in his tail, wrapped up in the tail. My dad didn't like that too much because his crest was killer whale, And he always used to say, there's lots of killer whales around, I don't see any Wascos. And in the Wascos here, over on that side, you can see a dog. The anthropologist found a domestic dog from 14,000 years ago, so the Haidas had dogs even then. And on the other ear is a human. And that human represents the people that visit Haida Gwaii. That could be you guys. You guys are on the pole, too. And that red animal up on top there is a marten. When he ran up and down the pole, that meant there was going to be an earthquake. Sacred One was going to start moving a bit and cause an earthquake, So if you saw that marten run up and down the pole, it meant going to be an earthquake. Right above that are the Watchmen. Woody Morrison, the guy from Heidelberg, told me a story about Watchmen one time. Over on the mainland, all the villages all had Watchmen, When the watchman over on the mainland there, he come down and he said, hey, Chief, there's a canoe coming. What kind of canoe? Haida canoe. How many people in it? 1. Said, okay, we'll send about 50 braves over there and we'll kill them. About 2 hours later, one guy come crawling back to the village. He said, they tricked us. There was 2 of them. People on the mainland probably tell her the other way around. Anyway, this pole is 50 feet long. It goes into the ground 8 feet, so it's got 42 feet of carved area. Took them 8 or 9 months to carve it. And it cost the government quite a bit when they raised this pole. They had to pay for the pole. They had to pay for transporting people down here. They chartered a couple of big boats like what you guys are on. 2 days after that, they had to have a potlatch because it's traditional to have a potlatch whenever you raise a pole.
Yeah.
So they had to carry on tradition. They had a big potlatch in Skidegate. A lot of people from Ottawa talking, and the chiefs were making speeches, and Giddenjaw's brother is his chief, Chief Skidegate. We have 2 chiefs in Skidegate, eh? And anyway, quite colorful going to the potlatch. Chiefs are all dressed up, and they have their frontlets on their head. They have their button blankets, and they all make speeches. And they had people from Ottawa there, all kinds of people. Dancing, probably Robert Davidson's group was dancing, and a lot of good dancing groups and singing.
Thanks for tuning in. Discover your next unforgettable journey at farandawaядventures.com. Experience the world differently.